Hello, interwebs, and welcome to the Frak, this podcast. I am the routine host, Jesse Gender, and I am joined as always by...
the unexpected and non-routine co-host. That's a lie. It's Vera.
Completely unexpected. Well, I mean, I wouldn't say you're routine. You are very expected as the co-host, but I wouldn't say you're routine.
Thank you.
How are you, Vera?
I'm exhausted.
Yeah, I'm with you. Yep.
This month is kicking my ass. But I'm doing okay. My boyfriend and I we went to a couple things this weekend. We went to a play called Dracula, a comedy of terrors.
Oh.
So it's a comedic take on Dracula, which actually kind of alters the story a little bit. Like has some characters behave in different ways, but there's a lot of there's also like some fourth wall breaking jokes, like really hanging a hat on the fact that it's a 5-person cast and everybody other than Dracula is playing multiple roles. There's actually one point they have the same person playing Renfield as is playing like the doctor treating him. And so they have this was, I think, the best joke in the whole show. It was great. They have Renfield like purportedly dive out a window to escape, and he goes off stage during this, and you just hear I heard somebody screaming. He says as he comes back on stage with a bad wig on.
That's really fun. That reminds you remind me of I saw an off-Broadway show version of The Toxic Avenger. So they did a musical version of The Toxic Avenger. I've never actually seen the original movie, but the musical was fantastic. And there's a song it only has like 4 actors in it. There's a mother character and I forget what the 2 characters are. There's 2 older women who played by the same actress in the story, and they both hate each other, and they never are on the same scene together until one song where they're like, "Oh, she's coming here? That's impossible!" And it's a whole song where they're singing to each other, yelling at each other. The song's called "Bitch, Slut, Liar, Whore." It's like, "You're a bitch, you're a slut, you're a liar, you're a whore, you're a petrified, bona fide, like fossilized dinosaur," or something like that. Like, it goes like that for a whole while. I loved the song. But like the actress is literally singing the song, like running between like offset and coming back on, circling around wearing a different costume because they have people backstage literally like putting it on her. And there's one point where like she like sticks her head out and like there's people changing her behind a curtain, and then she comes out as the other character. And then my favorite is like it just breaks down throughout the song where she comes out and half of her costume is one character, half is the other. So she'll turn different ways, yelling, "You're a bitch, you're a slut, you're a liar." It was a fantastic version.
Nice.
So yeah,
that's fun stuff.
Yeah.
We went to that, and we also went to the Vermont Owl Festival.
Ooh. Who?
Yes. It is a family event. There are lots of families with kids there, to learn stuff, but also like if you happen to have a little bit of a special interest in owls, which my boyfriend does, it's good for adults too. And there were 2 owls that he'd actually met before, because they're from the Vermont Falconry. So there was Sibley, who's a Eurasian eagle owl. There's Bowie, who's a burrowing owl. They're about this big.
Oh, that's cute.
But he also met Soren, who's a screech owl, who's about this big. Even smaller. And what was the other one? Alistair. I forget. It was a barred owl, not a barn owl, but a barred owl.
They have a little ukulele or whatever.
No, unfortunately, it's Barred because there's a bar pattern on the feathers.
That's not fun.
I know. He should have had a lute.
Yeah, I know. It's funny though, because I was just at the Ren Fair this weekend, which was funny because I did. So I didn't because I was lazy. My friends all dressed up in Star Trek costumes. Which is funny because I got recognized a few times at the Ren Fair.
I was going to say, so like, did they do the thing where they're like acting like they beamed onto a planet and
Well, yes, but I was just wearing a sweatshirt because it was like a cold day or whatever, and I ended up being because they kept making fun of me that I didn't wear the Star Trek uniform, me of all people.
yeah.
But I ended up being very glad that I didn't because so many people stopped them and were like, "You're breaking the Prime Directive. You're breaking the Prime Directive," and because they were ensigns, so like you're breaking the Prime Directive, literally to the point where one person had an already printed out thing that said violation of the Prime Directive and gave them a ticket. It was already printed out, so this is like a regular joke at the fair. And my favorite one was there were some Puritans that came up and they're like, "Ensigns, you're breaking the Prime Directive," and then had like a little brooch, opened up the brooch and had a Delta there and said, I'm from Section 31, and they were like all Puritans, so it was all Section 31 Puritans. It was really, really good.
Nice.
So, yeah. So it was a really funny time, but like my friend at the end of the day was so frustrated. He's like, yeah, every time I get stopped, so I was like, "You're breaking the Prime Directive." Well, maybe that's a good sign that Star Trek people shouldn't play God. But speaking of which, we are talking about the Battlestar Galactica episode, Hand of God. Is it the Hand of God? It might be Hand of God or the Hand of God.
Just Hand of God.
Hand of God. The finger of God.
I prefer two fingers myself, but you know.
Yeah, you know. All right, well, I'm sure God will oblige and make you his instrument.
Play me, God Daddy. Play me like your instrument.
Yep. Well, that's basically the theme of the episode, so we'll get there. I already am excited for this episode because I'm sure you have many thoughts. Anyways. Let us start off the episode with a recap. Oh, actually, sorry. No, I lied. I did actually read the comments this time, and then I forgot. But I didn't go into them.
You forget every time. It will be impressive. The time that you smoothly do the transition and remember to do the comments first.
I know. I was so close.
Instead
and I
of
did
just
actually
going, oh, shit!
I had them prepped, too, this time.
And
let me
yet,
pull them up real quick.
still...
I know. All right. So one first comment that I wanted to draw attention to was Mr. Fartingen. Apologies if I said that correctly, but they just said, "Did Vera just call Joseph Campbell a fucking asshole?"
Yes.
And the
yes,
answer
I
is
did.
Yes,
and
Vera
I stand
did.
by it.
Yeah, I agree. I agree wholeheartedly. We also had someone say, where did it go? And make sure I find it. Right here. This is from Theme Lost. Says, 1, I'm all in favor of giving Jesse an extra minute or two for spoiler minute. And I agree. We should do it.
Is there an actual argument append to that, or was someone just giving their opinion?
There's a lot that I need to talk about, is the argument for
So
it.
the answer was no. There was no case made, no argument, no actual points offered, simply your opinion, which will be considered and ignored.
Well, their other point was, I hope this isn't a spoiler, and I checked this is not necessarily a spoiler, and I'll just say it outright. From all the behind-the-scenes stuff I've consumed, Jesse is doing massive backfill. The writers and actors had no clue which truth was true. So I will not talk any specifics that I want to spoil Vera. What I will say is I am very well aware that, and this is something Vera can know, that what ends up getting revealed in later seasons is not necessarily what the writers had the intention to reveal from the start. There are some things I think they knew from the start, but not all of them. That being said, I will give the show credit rewatching. Everything that is revealed later is very consistent in the beginning. And actually, as I'm watching, and I would clock if it was inconsistent, I actually think it's like, wow, it actually works really well with my later knowledge, which is why I'm doing the backfill. Because, like, I don't necessarily know if it was the intention of what they were revealing. Some things I do know they knew. But there were some things they just came up with that still fit very, very well.
The thing is, good backfill is, like, we tend to say backfill as a derogatory because... And it's not because it's inherently bad. It's just because more often than not, if it's being deployed, it's because something went off the rails or somebody screwed up. But it is possible to move forward and go in a completely new direction. And if you are good at it and you know what you're doing, you can come up with a new thing and ideally build off what has already happened and realize, oh, here's a whole new thing we hadn't thought of that perfectly fits what we've already done. That is doing it well, and that is a rare skill because you can usually tell when they start pulling stuff out of their ass. And if you can't, that is a skill.
I would actually say that it's even slightly different than that, and this is something I'll even make in comparison to Ronald D. Moore's show that he worked on previous to Battlestar Galactica, which would be Deep Space Nine, in that Deep Space Nine was an interesting show. When it set up all of these mysteries. Like, the biggest, most overt one is Odo, the shapeshifter. Where did he come from? The pilot episode of the show kind of obliquely hinted that he must have come from the wormhole to the Gamma Quadrant, but didn't necessarily state what or where or why. Because he didn't remember where he was from either. And it was also very clear that the writers of the show did not know that at all from the beginning, at all either. But they managed to make the reveal of where Odo is from one of the best and one of the core parts of later Deep Space Nine. And it's one of those things where there are some writers like J. Michael Straczynski with Babylon 5 will plan out every single detail and then have to swerve when like actors get leave the show or whatever, as we saw with Babylon 5. And then there are some writers who just leave open massive question marks, and then it is a level of skill of whether or not you can fill in those question marks satisfyingly or not. I look at J.J. Abrams as someone who does not necessarily do his mystery box as well, but I will look at Deep Space Nine as one that did.
He does not at all.
Yeah.
Now, J.J. Abrams is someone who can come up with a great premise and then needs to hand it off to people who know what they're doing.
Yes. And I would argue Deep Space Nine did it, for the most part, rather well. And what I will say is this, for Battlestar Galactica, I think logistically everything that they do fits perfectly and actually aligns really well, to the point where I'm like, you could theoretically guess what some of these later reveals are, even if that wasn't what their intention was, which I think is very well done. Whether or not you like what those later reveals are will be a discussion we will have when we get there, because I'm sure Vera will have opinions.
Me? Opinions? What? Well, I never.
I will say it's consistent. Whether or not you think it's good is another argument altogether. Those are the main ones that I wanted to talk about. Yeah. Oh, this is the last one that I did want to bring up because it was interesting. Erica Whalen 4673, and this is in relation to our discussion about how we were talking in the episode, because this is about the episode Flesh and Bone, how there are some people that believed that if you look at the Bible, the Abrahamic God that's in the Bible was actually part of a pantheon of gods that they then erased. And so it was like, oh, when it said God spoke to the sea and the land, it was actually God speaking to the god of the sea, rather than just being God speaking to whatever, the sea itself as an entity. And this person said, what Jesse is discussing is the Hebrew Bible. By the time the Christian Bible canon was settled, the redactions she described were centuries old and had been ongoing for over a century by the time of Christ. Most scholars of the Bible agree that Judaism up to the Babylonian captivity was pluralistic and at best henotheistic, which I actually don't know what that word specifically means. I'll look it up in a second. And that strict monotheism was not a significant feature of the religion until the post-exile period. Under the Hasmonean dynasty, there was a significant emphasis on religious reform, and it was during this time that the strict monotheism became the dominant current, with the scriptures being redacted to fit the new theology that the Hasmonean kings promoted. So, I just thought that was an interesting little bit of biblical history, I guess would be the best way to put it.
Of course, it's always blasphemy to suggest this, but it is interesting how much most religions fail to interrogate the fact that you do know your holy text was changed on the whims of those in power repeatedly, right? You do know that.
Yeah, I mean, like Christmas was just a pagan holiday that they were like, yeah, we'll do it then.
Although, I suppose, to be more correct, that's not blasphemous, that's heretical. Because it's not necessarily against the teachings of the religion, it's against the institutions of churches.
Yes.
Which is generally my problem. Yes, I do not have the bug up my ass about religion that so many other people I know do. I absolutely am heretical as shit, have a lot of problem with churches, but that is not the same thing. Or at least it doesn't need to be.
I generally agree. Also, henotheism is the belief in a single supreme god while acknowledging the existence of other deities. So basically a hierarchy of gods. So
CEOs and middle management. Got it.
yeah. One would presume like Zeus would probably fit into that. I might be speaking on my ass, but that feels like, oh, there's the god above and a few other, or at least how we think of Zeus necessarily. Maybe
I would say that's more about the contemporary notion of Zeus than I'm talking on my ass later than probably at the time, because if you were lost at sea, you dealt with Poseidon. You couldn't ask to speak to the manager and go straight to Zeus. That's not how that worked.
Yeah, it's like, can I speak to I think Poseidon would get pretty pissed about that, actually.
Oh yeah, I think he'd actually just drown you harder.
Yep. Well, since we are definitely biblical scholars here, let us go back to the episode Hand of God of Babylon 5. Battlestar Galactica is what I meant. All right. We start off the episode with President Laura Roslin giving a press conference talking about the fact that the entire fleet is currently low on their fuel reserves of Tilium, something like that.
Tilium.
Whatever made-up element they use for fuel.
It seems to be like their all-purpose fuel, although from the sound of it, how it's discussed, the jumps eat it up more than gets used standardly. But they also talk about like, well, if we run out, we're just kind of dead in the water. So it does sound like it's the same fuel for everything. It's not like they need a special fuel just for the FTL tech.
Yeah, FTL versus like intergalactic moving. I don't even know. Whatever. No, that doesn't make sense.
Intergalactic planetary.
No, it'd be subspace, I guess, would be the way to go about it if I'm talking Star Trek prevalence. Anyways, but less than faster than light speed, I guess. Anyways, yeah, we do learn that they have about fuel for 2 more jumps of the entire fleet. And Roslyn is honest about that because someone asked her straight blank and she says yes. But then she starts to hallucinate snakes on her podium, and she kind of keeps it together, but is clearly she's very clearly something's going on that people are catching up on, but she's not freaking out, like she's not screaming or whatever.
Which, good.
Yeah. But she says we would, she says some things about like we would jump to a planetary system and hope we find a habitable system if we do. But then she sort of says like, that's all for now. And she sort of extricates her hands from the presumably hallucinated snakes and gets out of there.
Yep. Nothing quite like hallucinatory snakes to wake you up in the morning.
I know. I wish I hallucinated more snakes. It would certainly get me out of bed faster. Or maybe less.
I was about to say, depends what you're into.
Yeah, it depends on your kink. Anyways, we then cut to Crashdown and Boomer doing a sweep of an asteroid field. Boomer sort of makes fun of Crashdown a little bit because he has a thing for an Ensign Davis, who we'll get to see a little bit briefly later on in the episode. And Crashdown is angry at Dratus, but he hits it, and they find that the asteroid dead ahead of them is a mountain of Tilium. However, they also discovered that there is a Cylon base on it. That did not see them, but they definitely saw it.
Mm-hmm.
We then cut to Ty, Gata, and the Adamas, both Adamas, talking about this. And yeah, it's a lake of Tilium, that asteroid that could last them years, but the Cylons are also able to guard it. Lee suggests that they try and find another source, maybe jump 10, 15 jumps out and find one that the Cylons currently haven't found by sending out the Raptors to do that. But then, that would use up their fuel, as Ty argues. But then Adama himself, Commander Adama, says, nope, we're going to attack the Cylons. It's exactly the time. Catch them with their pants down. And they also acknowledge, I think Ty says, if we fail, end of game. And then Adama says, so we don't fail.
Yep. So this is, in many ways, this almost feels the scenario, not the overall episode. Because I specify that because I'm going to use a phrase that I usually use derogatorily, but I don't mean it that way so much this time. Feels a little bit reverse engineered as a premise, not the whole script though, because I tend to call out reverse engineered writing, or at least what feels like it. But this does kind of feel like going, okay, hang on, folks. We established that they've run out of stuff. We already dealt with water. People are going to ask, what about fuel? We don't want them having to stop and get fuel
every
all the damn
10
time.
episodes.
So we need to get them to a resource that'll have them set for years. They'll literally say that. But if we're going to give them that, we got to be sure it's hard. How do we make this hard?
Yeah. I also think the other probably impetus of the episode was like, well, we need them to have a reason to go up against the Cylons, and why would they do that other than like, because most of the time it should just be we should just run the hell away.
Yes, so. they need to have to basically, but like have to for a reason other than an ambush, because we've been doing that.
Exactly. So yeah. So now they have a reason to go and get the fuel. We then cut to Starbuck giving a quick little speech to the Viper pilots that are there about 7Gs and the guidance system and stuff like that. But then Adama comes in and he goes and speaks to her and he asks how they're doing, and she says they're getting stronger, and he says he needs he has a job for her, and she sort of says, yeah, the rumor mill says you have an op, and Adama says we need outside of the box thinking. And then in the most stereotypical action hero line ever, she says, that's outside the box is where I live.
See, the part that I laughed at was she says, well, the rumor mill says you're planning an op, and he goes, well, the rumor mill's right for once. I'm like, for once? The rumor mill has been spot on this whole damn episode. You have used it so often as a crutch for why people who shouldn't know things already know things. Like, oh, it's the rumor mill. What do you mean for once, dude?
It's great.
This rumor mill has been right up your ass.
Everyone knows about Boomer and the Chief. Everyone knows about Baltar's Cylon detector. Like, the rumor mill's great.
Everyone knew the Cylons look like people long before the announcement. Like, look, dude, the only difference between this and every other time the rumor mill has come up is that this was a time you didn't mind that it got out. That's the only difference.
Yeah. Quite literally. We then cut to Rosalind talking to, I forget her name, but the priest we've seen several times throughout the series so far. And Rosalind is...
Before we get into this, I'm going to make a note, because it's been a little while, and I'm going to make this note. Fucking handheld. Take your freaking camera operators off of caffeine. And I think I figured out the problem. Because I think about the other time that it really jumped out at me, and there is a consistency there as here. Characters are mostly just sat in chairs. And when there is no movement from the characters, like they're not even standing, so there isn't even the natural sway that a person has just standing under their own power. When they are just sat still in chairs, holy shit, the handheld camera work really feels jarring. And it jumps out in contrast to how still the people are. And I noted it because, like, this scene jumped out way more than I'm like, but I'm fine with it when it's like bobbing and weaving, on the CIC or all this other stuff. It's like, because people are up and moving. When they're not moving, it feels like the camera needs to calm the fuck down.
It's like they're just sitting there, just chill. Just
yeah,
chill,
no, I that was literally the thought that I had. I'm like, they are not moving. Why are you?
I could see that. I could go back and rewatch it. Again, it's more of those, like, I don't catch it as much as I'm used to it. But.
Yeah, I know. I think the thing for me is, assuming it isn't too shaky, because that'll just make me motion sick, but assuming it's not that, which the show hasn't been, to be fair, I can go with it when there is a sense of human movement to the scene as a whole. So the natural movement of someone holding the thing free-handed fits, but when it is an unnaturally still scene, as far as the people or things depicted in it, that's when I'm like, fucking stop.
Yeah. What's funny, though, that is, I won't bring it up just now, but I'll say this. It's funny that you bring up the cinematography in this scene, because I actually noted the cinematography in a later scene in a positive way. There's some good cinematography that I like later on that I'll note. So just interesting you both pull it out.
Like I noted a couple of episodes back, the shot compositions are great, but I'm noticing that so much more when I pull stills for the YouTube version of the podcast, because, it's not moving all over the damn place, and I can realize how well you set up that shot.
Yeah, there's a couple shots that I'll point out later on, but we'll get there when we get there. Anyways, Rosalind and the priest are talking, and Rosalind basically tells her about her hallucination of the snakes. She says she's taking Kamala, but she doesn't say for what, notably, as we'll get to in a second. And the priest says, what? You must have read Pythia and you're having me on.
Well, hold on. It wasn't just because she hallucinated snakes. The priest asks, how many snakes? And she says, 12. That to me is important, for what we're about to be getting into, that the priest waited for additional information and didn't because otherwise, like, we'll get to where this is going, but otherwise it could have been interpretable that she was jumping on the first thing, even vaguely, like what her teachings of the religion are, but she isn't. She needed more specificity, and I think that's worth noting.
Yes. Well, the reason that the priest is freaking out is and thinks that Rosalind's having her on, but Rosalind says, "No, I have no idea what you're talking about." The priest says, 3,600 years ago, Pythia wrote about the exile and rebirth of the human race and how it was led to a new homeland, and unto the leader they gave a vision of the serpents and gave the exact number that Rosalind saw. But the text also said that the leader was suffering a wasting disease, which you are not, most definitely not, are you? Nope, and that she would not make it to the new homeland.
Prophecy!
And I saw this and I literally wrote my notes. Oh, Vera's favorite.
Fuck!
Yeah.
Also, like, you didn't say it this way in your recap. I got the impression that the priest actually kind of suspected that she has an illness, because he was like, well, there's a wasting illness which you don't have. Do you? There was kind of this hesitation going on. So I think she actually kind of suspects.
Yes, but Rosalind notably does not say anything.
No, she doesn't. But yeah, prophecies. I love
your favorite. You love them.
I love prophecy. Yeah.
Well, I'm gonna save talking about it until we get to the end scene of the episode, because I think it'll be related.
I'm trying to think how much is worth me going into this. Here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna largely reserve a lot of this, because right now we only have the introduction of a prophecy, and I don't know how much or how little it will actually be a direct driver of the plot, or whether it is a background flavor, because it could go either way at this point. So I'm not going to go off on my full spiel, because it might not be warranted. That is a vain hope on my part, I am sure, but I'm going to fucking hold on to it, because I have a thing, when a story starts to do a thing that I don't want it to do, I will deny that it is happening until it is impossible for me to do so. So...
Well, we'll save the conversation, because there's another element where I'm like, we should also talk about Babylon 5 and its prophecy stuff that we did when we got there, because you had slightly different opinions on how that handled stuff.
Prophecy stuff can be handled well. So both Prophecies and Chosen Ones, I have a well-documented and very virulent distaste for. I don't like either one. That does not mean it is impossible for either thing to be done well. It's just I'm A, sick of it, and B, feel that 95% of the time it isn't done well, so I will never be excited when it shows up.
Yes. I very much agree with you. I'm probably less over it than you are, but I will say this, and I don't mean this is going to come off a bit ageist, and I apologize to you, Vera.
I'm older and more jaded than you. I'm aware of this.
Yes,
I know that I get bitter with age. You don't have to tell me that.
Yes, well, I'm saying I'm feeling myself getting as bitter as you are about the same thing. These same things.
You will never be as bitter as me. Never. But you may try.
Yeah, we'll see. But yeah, I'm getting there. But I do have the same. Let me put it this way: I am less sensitive to it as you are. I'm getting there though. But I agree with you pretty much. Even though I have exceptions that you also do as well, because we talked about it on our Babylon 5 podcast. But we'll talk about that when we have that larger conversation on prophecies.
Like here's what I'll say in this thing's credit so far. It is already introducing religious and those elements to it. One of my main things with prophecies is, especially when it feels like they come out of nowhere. Like, this is a world where it doesn't even, to me at least, make sense that there are prophecies. Like, the freaking Wicked movie did this out of goddamn nowhere. Decided to add a prophecy. I'm like, why?
I always feel like prophecies feel like lazy, especially when it's within a short run time of like, ooh, look, here's this prophecy of something that's going to come true later on because we, the writers, wrote it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Like it pretty much always almost always feels forced to me. But like here, at the very least, it is tying into the religious beliefs and both the specific religious beliefs of these characters as well as religion as a whole is a fairly core theme to the show. So I'm at present slightly less rageful about it. I'm still not thrilled, but at the very least, I will grant this is not a case of that shouldn't even frickin' be there.
Yeah. It's not coming completely out of left field.
Yeah, but the one that I like, and I like these Doctor Who episodes, but the End of Time Part 1 and 2, out of fucking nowhere, introduce a Time Lord lady covered in writing who's like giving prophecies. I'm like, what the fuck is that?
Yeah.
Show'd been going for almost 50 years at this point. Suddenly you're introducing prophecy writing religious nuts into the middle of the Time Lords.
Especially the Time Lords, who are literally time people who can write, like, peek ahead and be like, oh yeah, that's how that turns out. We'll write a prophecy.
Yeah.
But then it's like, but it's done as like weird religious nonsense, which is strange.
So, God, like that one ticks me off. I'm like, that has no fucking business being there. Which is not the case here.
Yeah. Well, we cut to Lee making plans with Adama on how to try to take the base. This is the introduction of what will become a fairly regular mainstay of the show, the little model ships that we get.
I like those. I've always liked those in like naval scenes or whatever, where they've got the big map and they've got the little push sticks and they're pushing units around on it. Like, it's okay. I understand that like this is stuff actually done in like war planning or whatnot, but like it's so cute.
Yeah,
it's just kind of adorable.
My favorite thing is later on in the episode when things are happening and the battle's going down, we see there's like little ensigns or somebody with a little like broom pushing the ships as they're moving, like trying to vaguely keep where they're at in real life. It's just very cute and funny. And this is, I'll just say it here so we don't have to get bogged down by it later. This is where I like some of the cinematography of this episode. Like during the later on action sequences, we get like cuts between the ships in real life doing things and then cuts to the models. There's like shots where like it flip, like we're following the models and then the shot camera flips and lands on where where it says Cylon base, with like where they're heading to. There's just some fun cinematography done with these models, which is nice because it's clearly on some level done to help reduce the need for a shit ton of CGI. So it's nice that they managed to make it dynamic as well.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So it's cute. I like it. And yeah, these become fairly regular appearing. They're not like ridiculously so, but they do get regular appearances. So yeah, I like it.
I just want to know whose job on the ship is model builder.
Yeah.
Who's the person on staff who gets to make like new ones of these when they like encounter something new, like, well, we need a representation of this. I'm like, ooh, let me get all my tools and put together a new model for you. I imagine some eccentric with like those big magnifying glasses on, all hunched over, like with tweezers.
The guy from Atlantis, the Lost Empire.
Yes, except not him because he sucks.
Yeah.
I don't like Mole at all. He does not belong in that fucking movie.
Well, anyways, I always think of that character when I think of people with those like weird little glasses. Also, it's funny because I was gonna say like, oh, maybe they have these models lying around from before the mass genocide of the human race. Except for they did not know what the Cylon Raider ships looked like, the new ones at that point, because they didn't have those little like bow ships. So someone on the Galactica,
somebody had to make them.
Yeah, within the past few months. Yeah.
That's somebody's job, and I love that. I love the fact that this is somebody's job to make these little things. And they're detailed and they're painted. Mwah.
Yep, it's great. Well, anyways, Lee basically comes up with a textbook perfect plan in Starbuck's eyes, because Starbuck is there, and she says, and that's why it won't work. And she says it's strategic plan, and and Ty sort of like calls her out. It's like, oh, well, when did you graduate from war college? And Starbuck has a thing back at him, says, oh, what, married life not all you expected it to be? And Adama cuts it off, but Starbuck gives him a little wink, which I thought was I just enjoyed it. But anyways, Adama basically makes the argument, we're not as crazy as she is, so we need her. And so she comes up with this idea of jumping the Galactica into a blind spot, making the Cylon patrols part of their plan and make their tactics work for us.
Yeah. So I always appreciate when like they take into account, wait, do the enemies know what tactics we might use? Because like there's that clip from did you ever see Patton with
it's been years, but
yeah,
I did see it.
Like one of the most memeable moments from that movie with George C. Scott giving an amazing performance. He really was one of my favorite actors. I love that guy. Where he launches this counter-offensive, I think it was against Rommel, and like completely took him apart because he knew the man's tactics. And he's like, there's the scene where he's looking through binoculars. He's like,
"You magnificent bastard! I read your book."
I need to rewatch that movie. It's been a long time.
I mean, like it's war propaganda, and so the usual caveats attached to it. The same as I would with at this point any movie that glorifies police. Like I'm not endorsing the message. I still think it's a good movie.
Yeah. No, there's movies like that. It's like, yeah, it's a shit movie politically, but it was fun.
Yeah, it happens.
Yeah.
Because despite what the right says of us, we can actually go, oh no, the politics were terrible, but it was fun. Unlike you folks who are like, wait, woman pick up sword, thing woke, must hate.
Black people doing things? No. Angry.
Have you seen the woke video game list?
Oh yeah, I did.
It's one of the most absurd fucking things I've ever seen.
Oh, it's great. I love it. It's phenomenal.
Legit question, what games are they allowed to actually play?
I know. It's like what sad life you live, It's like, come on.
Well, I also tend to think that like they don't actually abide by this list the exact same way that the gamers TM never abide by any boycotts that they call for. The most famous being, and I forget the reason for it, but the most famous being the Call of Duty 2 boycott. We're like, we're not going to buy it. And the day one, like, because these people like on Steam were organizing a boycott, except because of how Steam accounts are worked out, you can see who's playing these games. And all these like heads of this boycott, like, we will not cave. Day one, they were fucking playing the game.
Oh, I know. It's very much, it's very obvious how much of a grift it is. But moving on from that, we then get Starbuck and crew explaining their plan to Roslin, which is they will have 3 civilian ships used as decoys. They'll have them evacuated except for a few key personnel. They will look like they're going after the Tillium.
They're not. I mean, they are civilian ships, but they're not like the things generally accommodating for. They're specifically freight ships. Like they're just meant for moving stuff around.
Yeah, freighters. But yeah, they're going to be going after. They're going to look like they're going after the Tillium and not aware that the Cylons are there. The Cylons will presumably go after them. A Raptor will be positioned to watch this, and as soon as the Cylons take the bait, Vipers will come in from the Galactica and obliterate their base, mop up the rest of the Cylons that are there, and then take the Tillium. And then the civilian ships will theoretically, when it is time, use their FTL to jump out of there at the last second.
So this is where we enter into the rules of hearing a plan in a movie or TV show. You know this rule?
Yeah, if you hear the plan fully explained to you, it's not going to go that way.
Yes.
If you don't see the plan, then it goes off without the hitch.
If you don't see the plan, or if there's a part of the plan that you aren't told at the time, that part at the very least will work.
Yes. Yeah, which is what happens here. Yeah.
Yes. So speaking of textbook maneuvers.
Yeah, very much so. Rosalind asks that how many casualties will they have, and they say they'll have a good amount, but they need to, as Adama says, punch the bully in the face. So it's this or run out of fuel. And I like Adama's line, sometimes you got to roll the hard 6. And Rosalind gives them permission to use the freighters.
Which I actually like that I wasn't surprised that she asked, will there be casualties? But I like the upfrontness. It's actually Ty who answers that because he says, it'll cost us. And I like that up front because oftentimes with these kinds of things, it's like, oh no, if everything goes to plan, we should lose almost nobody. Like they're just upfront, oh no, this is gonna suck.
Mm-hmm.
We believe it'll be worth it, but this is gonna suck.
Yep. Which is saying something because they don't have people to immediately train back up for any Vipers that lose, or even Vipers.
Nope.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, we then cut to Ty and Starbuck talking to Baltar, and they have a picture of the base, and basically asking him questions about the Tilium and the base. They first are asking, well, how do we blow up the base without necessarily nuking it, which would make the Tilium inert? And he basically says, like, oh, I forget the exact reason, but it's basically you can use kind of a regular bomb, and the Tilium there, when it's being processed, it's more unstable, and you can just blow it up.
Yeah. So I just noted, and like, I get why. This is what I'm about to say is not a call out of the characters or a fault of the writing. It's just something that I'm just kind of like, oh, for God's sake, just because of the nature of the scenario. And I actually think it speaks well to the writing and its current applicability to certain well-known figures, who are creating a certain musk in our world today.
Very musky, very musky.
Which is that they just assume he knows shit.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I forget at this point what his specific area of expertise was supposed to be, but at this point, they just assume he knows shit. They just assume that he knows, what part of the base would have the thing that they need to bomb. And, like, again, from their perspective, I get why, but it's just funny knowing what a dipshit he is, that they keep assuming, oh, he just knows things.
Well, it's interesting, too, because now that I'm thinking about it, there is even a more direct parallel to Musk, because Musk did have some level of software engineering, I believe, background. Like, he did have some programming background. He hasn't kept up to date on it, and many programmers call him out for not knowing fuck all about nowadays, but he did have some background in it, from what I remember. And to what I recall, Baltar's expertise was in artificial intelligence and also, like, general, like, security programming. Why he would know about Cylon military bases, I would know fuck all.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There's no reason for him to know this, but they've bought his cover of being the smart one.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Especially in a genre that very often has one or two the smart ones who just have this broad base of general yet somehow
looking
very
at you,
deep
Spock.
knowledge.
Yeah.
That is completely unrealistic for any one person to have. Like, it's the generic scientist. Oh, I'm a scientist. Oh, so you know about blah, blah, blah. No, actually, I only know about these mice that I've been studying for the last 20 years. Because, like, science is an incredibly specialized field. But our fiction always treats it as this broad thing, like, oh, a scientist knows all the science stuff. And it's kind of fun to see it mildly deconstructed with this guy who has that reputation, but also clearly isn't that.
Yeah. I think the only one that ever, like, I mean, there's other examples, but Data was the only one that made sense for him to have all that knowledge.
That made sense. Or you know what? I'll even give a pass to somebody like Spock. I don't know the mental... Yeah, Smock. Good old Smock.
Good old Smocky.
Live short and be broke. But, a character like Spock, I'll give some allowance for, because I don't know what the mental capacity of Vulcan is. I don't. I do know what the mental capacity of a human is. I've had to deal with them my whole damn life.
Fair. Well, anyways, this does actually become relevant because they ask him where the Cylons would keep their Tilium that they need to blow up, and in his mind palace with Head 6, Baltar admits he doesn't know at all.
I actually really like the hard cut to him, and like he's laying down being massaged by her, because of course he fucking is. But I love the hard cut where he's like, I need your help, please.
Yeah. But yeah, he basically asked her where should I tell them to bomb, and Head 6's answer is, well, God would know, and you need to surrender yourself and your ego to God. Open your heart to him, and he'll show you the way. And Baltar just sort of looks at the picture and just sort of randomly, seemingly says, right here. And sort of gives them he with confidence says, this is where you need to hit. And then we cut into the hallway and talking to Head 6.
Hold on, before you do. Minor minor technicals nitpick.
Mm-hmm.
But, and this happens again when we're back in the same setting, and I think from a similar angle. But, like, when there's a wide shot,
Mm-hmm.
and, you know, she's over him and they're talking, her lines are so clearly ADR'd in. Like, her mouth either isn't moving or it's completely out of sync. And, like, it's not close up. It's a little bit away. And they might have gotten away with it airing back in the days where at least a chunk of the viewing audience still had old
on CRT
TVs. But, like, I'm looking at that and I'm especially thinking, like, okay, actually his lines are syncing up and hers aren't. And if you're going to sync up somebody's lines, it should be hers. Because who the hell do you think the audience is paying attention to when there's a dude laying down and a woman in a bikini?
Yeah.
Where do you think the eyes are? Because it's not on him.
I mean, I don't know what you're talking about. I'm here for Baltar. Yeah, I don't even buy it either.
Yeah. You didn't even have the conviction of that one.
No. To have the conviction of a mediocre cis white straight dude like Baltar.
You know, once upon a time.
Yeah, right. Now I'm just riddled with anxiety and self-doubt. It's wonderful.
Yes,
anyways.
but you are mildly less of an asshole.
Yeah, mildly. Only mildly, though. Anyways, we then go into the hallway, and Baltar basically admits to Head 6 that he didn't feel God speak to him, and I was just totally lying. But Head 6 says that God doesn't always speak in words, and we get Baltar saying the entire fate of humanity rests on my wild guess.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. We then cut to Starbuck in physical therapy for her knee, and she's sort of doing leg presses. And Adama comes in and says Apollo's going to be leading the strike force, and she'll have to sit this one out. But Starbuck says, "No, I'm getting ready. I can do this." And Adama says, "You're not ready." Doc Cottle says your knee won't take it, and he basically starts putting on weights onto her press and says the Viper thruster pedal requires this much thrust to activate. Now you're on your attack run. You got to jam that pedal. It's going to be 6 Gs. You got to hold that for 10 seconds. Puts on even more weight. She fails to hold it for 10 seconds. And then he says, this was only 3 Gs, not 6. It's a tough one, but you're staying home.
Yeah. And he makes the point in a way that she can't really fucking argue with. So
yeah,
he knows how to address this.
Yeah, and it's not, and I will say too, he's not overly mean about it. Like, he does seem deeply sympathetic when he says you're staying home at the end. Like, he's like, it's a tough one. When he says it, it comes across as very like sincere and empathetic and understanding. I
mean, like in his distant, buttoned up way that he just is as a person. But yes.
Yeah, but there's a sense of like he understands that this sucks and he gets it. Like Ty would probably point out the same exact way, but be a dick about it.
Yes. No. I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just I'm be careful that we're not painting an incorrect.
He's like so deep.
Picture of the man with words like empathetic and like, and it's not that he isn't those things. But I think what most of us think of when we hear those terms is not him.
Yes. He is empathetic for Adama in terms of how he expresses it. Yeah.
Grading on the curve. That is the severely emotionally repressed Adama.
Yeah. This was practically him just giving her a giant damn hug.
Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much.
Well, then we cut to Starbuck and Apollo talking, and she's giving him advice, and Apollo basically cuts in and is like, "You don't think I'm up for this?" She says, "Of course I do." And then he sort of points out, "You think I'm not going to pull it out of the fire in some high-risk maneuver. You think..." And he sort of points out, like, I would feel better if you were there too. This isn't an ego trip. It's my job. And Starbuck says, don't frack it up by overthinking.
Yep.
So, yeah. And it just highlights.
I like that there's some acknowledgement that, she wants to do this, but also like, look, no matter what any of us want, and I'd like you there too, this is what we got. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I also like the point that he points out is like, it's not ego or whatever. It's like, it highlights the difference between the two of them. Like, Apollo is fairly by the book, and Starbuck is like flies by the throttle. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. He's Iceman, she's Maverick. I get it.
Yeah, we get the dynamic. I got it. Yeah. Well, we jump over to Cylon occupies.
Only slightly less sexual tension than between Iceman and Maverick.
Only slightly. We then jump over to Cylon-occupied Caprica, where we have...
Caprica now.
Caprica, where Hilo and Tumor are running through the stables, and Hilo points out the fact, why haven't we seen a single living human being? Why is there nobody else on this planet? And Tumor basically makes the argument, well, they must be holed up in fallout shelters.
So, it's not a bad question.
Mm-hmm.
Here's the problem. And it's the core problem with this entire fucking plot line.
Yeah.
Because this is all passing in real time, but because they are only showing us small glimpses, it implies that they basically never talk when we don't see them. Because in terms of screen time, the amount of screen time we've seen them, this would make sense, like, at a point to start asking that question. But within narrative time, you haven't brought this up before?
Yeah, it's been a month or so.
Seriously, dude, what the fuck? Again, it just points to the fact that this story was not intended to be here, and it's just limping along, and every time it comes up, I just find more holes with it.
Yeah, I was trying to remember the pacing of this, and I was like, oh, is it going to get to the point later? I'm going to be honest, it's not going to get to the point until season 2. So we're gonna be limping along with this for a while.
You're telling me they're not gonna get off the fucking planet by the end of this first season?
I'm not saying what's gonna happen at all. I am just saying that the point, like, we're not gonna get to something interesting really with this until season 2.
Fuck off.
Until it warrants more than a scene or two per episode is basically what I'll say.
Okay, here's what I'm gonna say. I don't care how good your actor was. I don't care how good he was in the part. If you don't have a plan for the character, let him be dead.
Oh, I didn't say they didn't have a, like, it's going somewhere.
No, I understand that they came up with a plan, but the fact that they had to throw together a plan to justify having around an actor who, again, is a presence I like. I get wanting to keep him around, but you didn't have a good idea on how to do that. Maybe it's actually going somewhere that's interesting, but right now, God, this is a fucking block of concrete around this show's neck every time we cut to this. God
I don't
damn it.
disagree, but yeah, it does get somewhere interesting. We'll go with that.
I fucking hope so.
Yeah. Well, anyways, they hole up in the stables, and Boomer is clearly tired. And then, as they're talking about food, she gets sick and vomits, and starts, Hilo starts talking about taking anti-rad meds. And then they sort of say they're about 8 or maybe 10 days from Delphi, which is Delphi, which is where they can get a ship that gets them off the planet.
Woo!
Mm-hmm. All right, we then cut to Adama and Apollo. Oh, sorry, excuse me. I'll set the scene better. Apollo is sitting in the Viper Bay, just sort of looking at his Viper, and Adama comes up behind him. And Adama basically says, can't sleep. I couldn't sleep myself before big ops. And he sort of looks at the Mark II. It's like, it's a good ship. Got me a lot of tough scrapes. But then Adama hands Apollo him a lighter from his grandfather, Joseph Adama, Isai Morales. And he says, my grandmother gave it to, so his, your grandmother gave it to him. And he said that he would always carry the lighter into court cases. He'd always carry the lighter into court cases, and you would never lose unless he left it behind. And Apollo says, so you're worried too to this, basically meaning the implication that, like, you're giving me this lighter because you don't think I can do it and you think I need the luck. And Apollo says, sometimes it feels like the whole ship thinks Starbuck would do better. And Adama says, I don't. And Apollo asks why, and he says, because you're my son. So,
yeah.
And then Apollo says, I'll bring back the lighter. And Adama says, you better, or I'll kick your ass. It's a good lighter.
Yep. And we get the bagpipes in.
Yes, I was made note of it because that is Apollo's theme.
They getting in the bagpipes, the old doodle sacks, as the Germans call them.
This will be a recurring theme, and it is tied very much to Apollo as a character.
Gotcha. I like bagpipes. It's not bad.
It's a bit much.
It did kind of bowl me over. I was like, what? Okay.
Yeah.
Like, here's an instrument that has never been deployed in the show up to now. You're just gonna drop bagpipes on me? Okay. All right.
I do love Bear McCreary, but rewatching this, I'm like, yeah, I'm pretty sure when we get to season 2 that he finds his footing a little bit more. Because I will say there's a distinct choices that he makes starting in season 2 that are fantastic, and I've been re-listening to some of the music. I have some of these like old CDs that I have signed by him and such that I've been replaying, and yeah, there's some great music stuff that comes up, especially in season 3. But yeah, season 1, it's a bit rougher.
A little. Like,
It's not that it's bad. It's not as
no,
bad. It's just not necessarily
bad,
integrated very well.
But you know,
Yeah.
it just kind of made me go, whoa. I think, and part of what threw me off is because throwing in bagpipes, I don't know, felt very latter 90s.
Mm-hmm.
Because after kind of the 1-2 punch of Braveheart and Titanic,
Mm-hmm.
bagpipes were really in soundtracks for a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Often in places where it's like, why the fuck is that there?
Yeah.
Especially
right.
if they showed up on TV. So it almost feels like a couple years out of date for when this was airing.
Yeah, well, Bear McCreary is Scottish? I believe he's Scottish. So, yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Like, and that's great. And I'm not saying that like he doesn't have a connection to the South. It's just I remember the 90s. I remember the Celtic and New Age wave that happened in the wake of those two soundtracks being huge.
Well, now I'm checking. One second. Oh, he's part Scottish and part Irish. That solves.
See, you know what would have been really funny?
Yeah.
Is if he wasn't either of those things, and you were just a massive racist, and you assumed because there was a Mick at the start of his last name.
No, I know for a fact he is. I was almost certain he was Scottish. His album, which I really love, called The Singularity, has a song that is very clearly about like Scottish history of colonization, like being colonized. Like the song it's a really cool song where they found a guy who is the last person alive who speaks this very specific Scottish dialect, and they wrote lyrics using that specific dialect for the song, and it's about like how like, you know, colonization erases history and steals things from people. It's a very, very good song. So I'm like, if he's writing that song, I'm pretty damn sure he's Scottish on some level.
I was confident that you knew, like, you like this guy's work enough. I was confident that you knew. I'm just saying it would have been really funny.
Yeah. By the way, I would highly recommend everyone listen to that song. It's Exiles, and it features the song is, the whole album is fan-fucking-tastic, but the specific song is called Exiles. Highly recommend it, and it's also sung by, why am I blanking? The Pippin in Lord of the Rings.
Billy Boyd.
Billy Boyd. Yep, it's Billy Boyd in it. It's a really, really good song. So
nice.
Yeah. But yeah, the whole album's worth listening to, but that song in specific is fantastic. Anyways, we then cut to back to Silent Occupied. Ceiling Occupied Keeperkey. I don't know why that was it. Actually, I did want to. Sorry, jumping back. I just want to point out, really love that scene. I adore the lighter scene. I thought it was really good. And again, I adore the Adama Apollo repressed father relationship.
They're trying
stuff. It's good.
They're trying.
It's cute. I liked it. I liked it a lot. I also like the references to Caprica, even though this was clearly before Caprica, and Joseph Adama was not going to be a character anyone thought was going to be shown on scene. But I like Caprica the show. So, anyways, and that later does appear in the show. So, what a shock. Anyways, yes, Silent Occupied Caprica. We have Hilo and Tumor wake up to the sound of centurions, but then Hilo sees a Six, the one that he thought was killed by Tumor earlier on in the series, like I think like episode 2 or 3 or whatever. And Hilo's freaking out about this. Is like, I thought you killed her. I saw her blood on my lap. But Tumor's like, hey, we gotta go, mister. Let's get out of here. We'll figure it out later. And basically get him to not think about too hard about it.
Yep, and I'm sure this conversation will not be picked up again until the next episode, which will ostensibly be some days or even a week later, which means they will not have talked about the thing that just happened for a fucking week.
Yep, pretty much.
God damn it, man.
Anything else you want to say about this storyline with the two of them from this
episode?
No. Okay, then I'll leave it there.
No, I really don't.
Okay, curious, interesting. That's all I'll say.
He is very, very again, not so much in raw screen time, but within narrative time, he is very, very, very slowly starting to realize there are holes in what is going on, or at least what he has been told is going on.
Yeah, that's fair.
And as far as Toomer is concerned, she's acting completely consistently with what she did, like when she first appeared to break away from them, which again, I still don't even know if that's actually what's going on, but she's continuing to behave consistently with the way she was already behaving. So I don't know why you think I'd have thoughts.
I don't know. I'm surprised you don't, but okay. I won't say anything.
Fuck's sake.
I'm not gonna say shit.
You're pulling this shit just to get
No.
my skin.
I am actually like, no, there's definitely something you missed here, but I'm not. If you didn't notice it, I won't say anything. I won't say shit, but yeah, you definitely missed shit. We'll talk about it in spoiler minute.
So,
anyways,
here's my note for aspiring screenwriters out there. No matter what your hints are, whatever you couch them in has to be interesting. And if it's not, I'm not going to pay attention enough to get your fucking hints.
Now, that's fair. That's fair. The thing that I'm referring to, totally missable. But yes, yeah, you did miss something. But that's on you. We have the Galactica. We then see the...
it's on the story for being fucking boring. That is not my fault.
No, I'm just saying, there's a few things you've missed at this point, but I you're oh, am I getting a number? I'm getting a click.
That was for the extra ha-has. I was prepared to let the hee-hees go. That was for the ha-has.
Aww. Well, I'll use more hee-hees and ha-has then from now on. Anyways, we then have the Galactica jump in. They say they can't see anything, and they launch the Vipers to the Cylon base from the Galactica. And so they say balls in play. No, sorry, excuse me, lied to you. They launched the civilian freighters, and they said balls in play. And you can bet they heard that, and let's see if they take the bait. We then cut to Chief and Callie waiting briefly, and everyone waiting in CIC, so everyone's just sort of waiting to see what happens. But then Boomer is watching with Crashdown in the Cylon Raider, and they see the Cylons heading out to the freighters, and they take the bait. So they launch Strike Force 1.
Yep. Everything's going according to plan, and I'm sure it will remain that way.
Yeah, I'll go 100% according to plan. But yes, Starbuck is watching. They say they launched most of their fighting force. And Starbuck says, I just hope Lee can handle it. And she says this to Adama, but then Adama says, Lee isn't the problem. Take a good look at yourself. When you're in the cockpit, you're in control. It's hard to give it up. It's easier if you're flying with them. And she says, I never wanted this kind of responsibility. And Adama says, Silence didn't ask us what we wanted. Welcome to the big leagues. And I had to make this. And he says I had to make this transition myself.
Yeah, and I like this interaction a lot because like she doesn't want a command post. She doesn't want to be planning. She doesn't want to be overseeing what other people are doing. She wants to be in the thick of it. That's where she wants to be. And some of that is just, being an action junkie. Some of it is that's being what she knows. But also some of that is a sense of control. There's that fine, I'll do it myself. You do have to, if you're going to command, you do have to relinquish a certain amount of control, at least if you're going to do it any well.
Yeah, you have to trust the people underneath you are going to be competent and do their job as best you can. Yep. Well, they have...
You need to not be the fucking captains on Babylon 5 going out and leading the attack squadrons all the fucking time.
Yeah. Oh, Sinclair. And Sheridan, too. But
Sinclair was worse. Sheridan did do it, too, but Sinclair was the fucking worst.
Well... When they launch Strike Force 1, the Cylons detect it, and they send 50 plus of their patrol out to them, outnumbering them 5-1. The Cylons were too smart for their initial plan. The 50 Cylon Raiders come at the 10 Vipers. One of them gets killed, Fireball, and they have the Strike Force start returning to base.
Yep, so. And we have the whole thing where there's like the shot of the board with the little push models and everything, but you hear the radio chatter of the fighters, and it's all scattered and staticky and panicked and shouting, and it gives you it's like what you said before. I'm sure part of it was cost saving, so they didn't have to CGI animate all the dogfighting, but it also really gives you a sense of the kind of stress that it puts, especially someone like Starbuck who isn't used to this. It puts her under to just have to listen to them
And not
panicking and dying.
Yeah, no, it's a really great perspective. It's like it saves money on CGI. It's very dynamically shot too, as I said. It puts you in the perspective. Like it works very well on every level, from just story perspective to shot perspective to, I'm sure, budget saving. So
yeah, it's just really, really skilled TV making right there.
But yes, the Strike Force is coming back towards the Galactica because the Cylons heard their transmission call. So all of the Cylons then turn to start coming at the Galactica. And then it's sort of revealed, like, now we play for all the marbles. And Adama says, Starbuck, it's your plan. You laughed, so I'll wait.
So, well, no, it's like, I was like, what is this note? And I was like, oh, right. So there was an ad break around this point. And there was a car ad where towards the tail end, the ad went free from the tariffs. I was like, what the fuck?
Oh, God, are we at that point now?
It's in advertising now.
Oh, God.
We have not yet been fucked by the president. Please buy our car. Oh, my God. I couldn't fucking believe
Jesus Christ. I know 2 businesses that I bought stuff for that went out of business because of the tariff shit already. So that's fun. Whee! We live in a dystopia. Anyways, back to the show.
back to the attempted genocide of the human race. What fun!
Yeah. And now back to the show.
This is our escapism. The last of humanity being hunted down like animals. This is where we go for a happy place right now.
Yeah, I feel like I'd like to live there.
Everything is fine. We laugh because we have run out of tears.
Yeah. Oh. God. Anyways, yeah, Starbuck reveals that she actually had another plan because she tells Apollo the back door is open, which is a fun phrase to tell people. Back door's open. Turns out that an entire squadron of Vipers, including Apollo, was hiding on the Cylon freighter ships.
On the civilian freighter ships.
The civilian is what I meant. Shut up. Don't need your corrections. Anyways.
That would have been real impressive if they were hiding on Cylon ships. I would really want to know how they pulled that one off.
Yeah. But yes, so they start going to the Cylon base now that they have a clear way in because the Cylons have headed off towards the Galactica. Rosalind makes a note of, why didn't you tell me they had another attack force? And Adama argues, like, I routinely hold back tactical details on a need-to-know basis. Old habits die hard. And they still might pull this off. So.
Yep.
It's not at all that we wanted to have a surprise for the audience, Madam President. No,
of course not.
No, not at all.
We had to let the audience think the plan had failed, Madam President.
Yeah, exactly. Well, anyways, Strike Force 2. Yeah.
I don't know. It just feels like a sketch. Like what seems like a fourth. What if you had something where it seems like a fourth wall break until you realize a character's having a psychotic break, like, well, Madam President's for the sake of the audience, so that they could be surprised after thinking all is lost. What audience? What are you talking about? What's wrong with you?
Yeah. I've seen a couple things do that, but it's usually played off for more comedy. It's like, who are you talking to? And then it like cuts the other angle and they're just talking to nothing or whatever.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Is the audience in the room with us right now?
Yeah. Also, Deep Space Nine did that to a degree too in its final season with Benny Russell.
Yeah, I mean, it's the kind of thing usually gets done in sketches, like 10 years ago when sketch comedy could actually thrive on YouTube. But
Well, anyways, Strike Force 2 heads in. They try to blow up the base, but obviously their guidance has been jammed. So, and a guy named Chuckles gets killed, and as does another girl. So Apollo goes into
Chuckles I was surprised at. He was one of the 3 new pilots who we learned the names of. So I was like, oh, dang.
Yeah,
He went quicker than I thought.
Yeah. Also, we do see Hot Dog, who was part of the Strike Force 1. He's still alive, though. Yes. But yeah, Apollo goes into his trench run, and they basically ask, Lee, you turned off your targeting computer.
That is exactly what I wrote down. Like, oh, we have a trench run.
Yeah.
Because, like, they can't, so they try and fire the missiles. The guidance things are blocked, so they veer off. They have to get closer, but they're under such heavy fire they can't. So he's like, well, I'll fly down a mine shaft and hope that the other end comes out where I need to.
Yeah, and I do like Apollo says, like, oh, don't do this, Lee, don't do this, Lee. And Baltar points out, it's like, there's no guarantee that it'll end up anywhere of the kind near where he wants to go.
Yeah.
So, yep.
I do like that Lee is basically like this. There's something I just like about heroic characters about to do something that, like, for the sake of the story, is going to work, but where they're just like, all like, oh, this is a bad idea.
yeah.
I just like that. I always like that.
And as a character beat, it's worth noting this is him basically pulling a Starbuck and not overthinking it.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah. So it is showing that he's doing what Starbuck would have done. Anyways, he does go through. There's a cool little bit where, like, he has to almost do a complete stop and, like, go like 90 degrees up. Which is
then once he's up, this I thought was really cool. And it was something I hadn't thought about before because this is on the surface of an asteroid. It's effectively in space, in vacuum. So these things that very much look like jet fighters can hover and like actually stop dead. So once he's above ground, he just kind of like does a few thrusters to stop his momentum, and then he just kind of hovers there. Because there's no gravity. He's not having to fight the gravitational pull that an actual jet would have to on Earth. I was like, oh, nice. Cool.
Yeah, no, it's cool. It's a fun bit, yeah.
Yeah, it's a neat little touch.
Yeah. Well, he does do it. He goes out and he drops the bomb. It doesn't blow up immediately. But as he gets away, it does blow up, and it blows up the entire base. And he says, mission accomplished. Tell Dr. Baltar he was right on the money. Then we get a huge sting of the Irish music yet again. And everyone starts hugging. And Starbuck hugs Rosalind and says, sorry, ma'am. And Rosalind's like, no, thank you. Thanks to you, we now have enough fuel to last us years, and we won't have to deal with it as a plot point ever again. And then hugs her back.
Just like we won't have to deal with the water again for a while, now we won't have to deal with the fuel again for a while, unless we decide that we can get a good story out of it.
Yes.
We just needed to get the nerds in the audience off our ass. Okay, this is contagious now. You're talking about an audience too. What is going on?
Who is this audience? What are you talking about? Anyways, the Cylons start bugging out. Adama tells everyone to pursue and destroy them, and Adama is clearly relieved, clearly relieved on the scale of Adama. Like there's a moment of like he's like clearly looking relieved in a stoic kind of way. The bagpipes start playing. Apollo lands and meets with Starbuck, and Starbuck says, couldn't have done it better myself. And he says, let me hear that again. They all have their nice Coronas with lime. I
thought they
it's not actually Coronas, but yeah.
I thought they looked more like Miller High Life to me, but
yeah, I mean, I was just thinking of Fast and Furious. Got to have that Corona.
Oh, would you believe I've never seen any of those movies all the way through?
Really? I actually would recommend them. They're fun. They're dumb fun.
I'm sure they are. I've just never gotten around to them. It's not like a matter of principle, like that's dumb and I won't watch it. No, they look fun. I just have never gotten around to them.
Yeah, no, they generally all get pretty better. The last one started to get long in the tooth. The only thing really worth watching the last one was Jason Momoa doing very offensive gay-coded villain, but he did it with a lot of fun. It was a very fun offensive stereotype. But yeah, I think generally those movies are great. My favorite part of the whole franchise, though, this is a quick little tangent because it's one of my favorite things to say, is I hadn't seen any of the movies until a few years ago, so I watched them all in order. And when I say in order, I mean in linear order because they.
I was gonna say like in release order or in chronological.
No,
order?
I watched them in chronological order.
Because I know there's some shenanigans with that.
Yeah, there is. But my favorite thing is there are technically two short films. That there's one that takes place between 1 and 2, and there's one that takes place between 2 and 4, I think is how it goes. Regardless, the one that takes place between 1 and 2, it's about Paul Walker going to from LA to Miami, because the second movie takes place in Miami, and it's just him in the middle of America. I think he's in Texas, and he's like determining, he's like, should I go back to LA to face the consequences, or should I go to Miami? And it's like this whole little story about him deciding that. And the end of the movie is like the decision point whether he chooses to go back to LA or Miami. And he just drives up to a T intersection, and there's a sign right in front of him as he drives, and it says Miami this way, Florida this way, or sorry, Miami this way, LA this way. And I'm like, and then he turns and goes to Miami, and I'm like, where the fuck in America is that sign? Yeah, exactly. It's like, where in America does that sign exist? Oh, Miami this way, LA that way.
That's fucking brilliant.
Yeah,
that's the best stupid shit.
That's why I like them. They're dumb movies, but they're fun dumb. They're very fun dumb. So yeah. Anyways, yeah, I recommend them. They get long in the tooth. They need to end. Do this last one and be fucking done. But I've enjoyed them all. Anyways, Starbuck gives Apollo a cigar. Crash Down and Boomer come back, and Crash Down hugs Ensign Davis, so that looks to be a thing. Just the background. And then Adama shows up. Apollo, who has lit the cigar with the lighter, tosses it to Adama, who seems very proud of his son. Again, on the Adama curve. So
he fucked up the cigar. You're supposed to light them with wooden matches.
Well, you gotta do it. You gotta do it with the lighter that your grandfather's lighter.
I know. I'm just
it's
being
symbolic, Vera. It's
I'm being
symbolic.
a nitpicky bitch.
Yeah, well, that's who you are. Anyways, we then cut to Baltar and Head Six talking to each other inside his mind palace, and Head Six points out, it's like, have you ever heard Pythian prophecy, the same prophecy that was talked about with Rosalind and the priest? He's like, no, I never paid attention to ancient history. And Head Six says, you should have paid closer attention. Says the phrase that we've heard before, all this has happened before, all this will happen again.
Which, that part he knows, because, like, she brings up the prophecy and he doesn't seem to know it. She mentions that and he's like, everybody knows that part.
Mm-hmm. And then she points out, they said that there's vipers of 2 and 10, or serpents of 2 and 10, of which Baltar makes the connection. Oh, the vipers, they were 2 and 10. There was 2 groups of 10. So was that the prophecy? And Head Six points out, you should have read more. It said, though the outcome favored the few, it led to the confrontation at the home of the gods. So we get that. That is not at all set up for finale, I'm sure.
Of course not.
Yeah. But Balthar seems to be more stuck on this fact that God guided my finger to that target. So God wanted me to destroy the base. And Head Six seems to be kind of proud of him. It's like, oh, you gave yourself over to him. And he's like, yes, I suppose I did.
Yes. And so he comes to the one conclusion that an egotistical, overprivileged white man was always going to come to.
I am an instrument of God.
Of fucking course you are.
Mm-hmm. That's not at all gonna send him on an ego trip, I'm sure.
No! Like, yeah, he's really gonna surrender his ego now. I have no doubt that he will get taken down a peg at a later point where he, like, just assumes that God will be on his side in everything he does, and he's gonna get smacked down pretty hard over that. But, yeah, for the moment, we get to just watch him bask in the glorious blaze of his own ego in his mind palace. That's not the sun, that is his ego that is lighting the entire place.
Yep, very much so. But yeah, he has come to that conclusion. Anything to say about this stuff?
No, I don't think so, not beyond what I already said.
I'm trying to think how much I should say. I guess I'll ask a question. Anything to make of this has all happened before, all this will happen again? Considering this is the second time it's been reiterated?
I mean, attention is being drawn to it as a phrase. Obviously, it matters. But, like, why? So, here, the main question for me is, how literal is this meant to be? Because it's a sci-fi show. Time loops are not off the table. We could go super literal on this, or we could go allegorical, where the players involved are just stuck in a cycle. So there is there's a creator creates something that destroys them, and then maybe the new creators create something that destroy them again, and maybe that's the cycle. I don't know. Like, I don't have a specific theory. Obviously, the phrase matters. I don't know what it means.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I'm a bad theorist, so
The only other thing I'll point out is like anything, because it is brought up within this scene and is connected to it overtly. Anything to connect that with the prophecy stuff?
No, not really. Not more than just the inherent nature of prophecies. Like, by the very nature of somebody said a thing however long ago and now it's happening, just kind of is a different iteration on the same idea. So no, not really.
Okay, then I won't say anything from there. Then I will leave that be. Just asking questions for no particular reason.
Stop looking disappointed in me like you expect me to catch shit that I'm not catching.
No. I'll be clear on this before I get to the spoiler minute. We'll go into spoiler minute and just say I'll be clear on this. It's fine that you're not catching it. It's the kind of person you are. You're not necessarily a speculation person.
I'm not at all.
And the part of me that is disappointed is more just like there's some interesting thematic stuff being brought up here, but it's like I can't talk about it because if I talk about it, it gets too obvious. And so I'm not going to say that. So it's just sort of like I'm trying to feed you to maybe talk about some of the thematic stuff so that I don't get obvious about it.
So it's all about you and what you want.
Yes, exactly.
No, Jesse, that's not how this works. We'll get you there. We'll keep training. It'll be okay.
We'll get there eventually. Shut your face. All right. Well, to shut Vera up for at least 60 seconds, we are going to go into the spoiler minute. So for the next 60 seconds or so, I'm going to talk complete spoilers. So if you do not want to be spoiled yourself, jump ahead 60 seconds as Vera is going to do in real time by giving me 60 seconds on the clock.
You know what? I'll give you an extra 10.
Oh, I actually don't really need it this episode.
Fuck it. I will never give you extra time again.
No, I know. The only major thing here really is to point out that what Vera missed, which is that Tumor is having morning sickness, which I think is weird, just considering the fact that like she's pregnant already and it's been clearly called out by the show that it's only been a month and she's already having morning sickness stuff. I obviously could argue like Cylon human babies can take longer, but that makes no sense given where the show ends and what we know we in the present day are. We are half human, half Cylons, and we have 9-month gestation periods. So it really makes no sense that she's having that right now. But regardless, that is the major thing of the episode that Vera is not picking up on. She doesn't necessarily need to. The show is obviously hinting at it, but it's not being overt about it. And then also, the Baltar clearly having been led by God, and I do remember like it is quite literal that like it is the Abrahamic God in this show, and it's not a like sci-fi answer. So I'm gonna be curious to see how Vera's gonna handle the prophecy stuff given that. So, all right, what did you think of the episode, Vera?
It's pretty good.
Yeah.
Like the freaking Hilo shit aside, which god damn it, man. I'm waiting for literally anything to happen that feels like it's actually a new thing and not just dragging out the exact same plot points episode after episode. But that shit aside, this was pretty good. Mm-hmm. They found an economical way to give us a battle in the action and to have, both Starbuck and Apollo have their own little mini arcs with Apollo having to basically learn to loosen up a little bit, whereas Starbuck had to learn to let go of a certain amount of control. There's pretty good tension. We actually had some losses of characters who I remembered, not like massive important characters, but like I actually knew Chuckles. I knew that name, and I was surprised to see him go. So that actually gave a little bit of weight to this stuff. It was a logistical hurdle that the show was going to have to deal with sooner or later. Like, won't they run out of fuel? Well, they won't now for a while, but we had to do this first. It's a pretty solid piece.
Yeah, I agree completely. It's a really solid piece. There's a couple of thematic things in this episode that are bigger thematic things. Let me put it this way. There's not a lot that I had to talk literally in spoiler minute. This will be an episode that we probably will return to thematically later on. So I'll just keep it in mind as a thing to remember. Only thing I did want to ask you, just before I forget, what did you make of the fact that Baltar did guess correctly?
Oh,
we didn't really talk. Yeah. I figured he was going to. I just wonder if you were going to make anything of that. I'm not saying you have to. I'm just
well, no, because like here's the thing. Again, this is the thing you got to remember with how my brain works, which is basically to keep this stuff in stasis and just wait for the show to tell me which it is, because one of two things is going on. Either this is meant to be taken as an actual affirmation of the hand of God, the titular hand of God in this case.
I like titular.
I like tits. Or the point of this is just to start Baltar down the path of whatever the fuck he's about to do next, now that he thinks he's an instrument of God, in which case it doesn't need to have actually been a god, and it still needed to go this way to send him down that road, wherever the hell that leads. And it is more just a coincidence. This strikes me as a show that doesn't deal too much in coincidences, but I don't think the show would be above them if it can push things in the correct direction. So I don't like, the purpose seems to be, at least within universe, is to largely impact Baltar and get him into a different position of understanding and thought process. The only question is whether what he's thinking has any validation, or if he is just doing what so many religious people have done for time immemorial before him, just saw a thing that seemed odd and came to a wild conclusion. Because in his mind palace, you didn't mention this, I don't think, he actually says, like, there's no other logical explanation. And I practically shout at the screen, yeah, there is. You got lucky. Like, that is a completely logical explanation that you have just barreled past because you like what this other answer means for you. So again, I don't know if the show is literalizing divine intervention in any way, or is examining people who rely on it. I don't know what I'm dealing with here. I suspect it's critiquing one of the two. It's possible to do both, but you do have to have a primary target if you're going to have both there. And I don't know which is the case, but that's where I'm at with that.
Yeah, fair enough. I just had to, it's one of those, like, I assumed that was going to be your answer. I just had to ask because people probably would call us out if we didn't at least discuss it. So, yeah.
Fair enough.
Had to ask it. But yeah, I agree with you completely on the episode. I really like this one. It's a really, really strong one. Yeah, I enjoy it quite a lot. With that said, anything else, Vera?
Nah.
Stuff time, then.
Stuff! You can find my stuff by looking for Council of Geeks. Patreon pays the bills, and on my YouTube channel, I am reviewing the new episodes of Doctor Who as they come out, as well as maintaining a new video every Saturday. I've recently had some really annoying ones, having to talk about trans rights in the UK, which are not in good shape, and Neil Gaiman deciding to stop even pretending to be the good guy. So, yeah, those have been fun. Hopefully we're going to do at least slightly lighter topics for around the time that you're hearing this, assuming more of the world doesn't burn down in such a way that I feel the need to talk about it. I don't know. We'll see. But the Doctor Who stuff's fun. Then there's the Break Room of Geeks, where I talk about whatever I have watched, played, read, or listened to lately. I've had recent reviews out for episodes of Black Mirror. I'll have one out for every episode, probably a couple of weeks. After you hear this, I'll be wrapping that up. I am currently, at time of recording, still watching The Last of Us and reviewing those. I may have bounced off the season by the time you hear this. I'm kind of expecting to, but it hasn't happened yet. So that's on there. And I've had recent reviews for oddball things like the video games Dredge and Made in Cops, as well as the music album Mark III from the band Steam Powered Giraffe. I was burning through some interesting commissions that I got over there.
I like Steam Powered Giraffe. They're fun.
Yeah, I like them too. So that is the geeky stuff. There is, of course, the spicy stuff.
Spicy stuff, of course.
And for that, you look for Vera Wild. Wild is spelled W-Y-L-D-E.
Wildy.
And you can find content on YouTube, where I have started releasing reviews of spicy video games as well as adult toys. Yeah. And you can also find Vera Wild content on TikTok.
Am I getting a click for that? Yes, I am. You can find my stuff at Jesse Tender on YouTube, where I do video essay style of content. Not a lot happening there, just because I'm working on a big project behind the scenes for the channel, as well as a few other big projects outside of the channel. So be looking on the lookout for some stuff that'll pop up here and there on that in the near future. But I am much more active currently on my secondary channel, Jesse Tender After Dark, where I'm reviewing all the same shows that there is: Doctor Who, Star Wars Andor, The Last of Us. And I believe that's it for the moment. I am also on Blue Sky, which is the only social media that I really use on any regular frequency. And I am also on Nebula, which is the streaming service that houses my movie Identities, as well as the upcoming show Subliminal, which is going to be filming this summer and be releasing probably later this year or early next. So be on the lookout for, and I should say the show Subliminal that I'm directing an episode of. I'm not sure if I made that clear. But yes, be on the lookout for that. I also have a Patreon that helps me pay my bills and gets you your name and videos and extra videos and all of that jazz. But that is everything that I have. Anything else, Vera?
Nah.
All right, with all that said, I hope you live long and prosper.
Be seeing you.